Another key point that I've realized is, take for example what he says in this portion that I just read to you about religion. He says, regarding God, he says, and they're all invisible because they don't exist. And before, when he says that our sense of moral kinship with other human beings is part of being human. These are all things that he's pulling out, he's creating these dogmas, and they are dogmas. He can't go and prove that there is no God that exists somewhere, because to have the capacity for that, he would have to have the attributes that we ascribe to God. It's kind of interesting. Another interesting thing too is the whole thing, and I haven't read the books, I've just read portions of this, but this concept of him killing a person that is set up as a god, who I guess it comes out later is just an upstart angel, which also falls right in line with LDS Mormon theology about Lucifer setting himself up as the god of this world. And also, it's kind of interesting too, because as I was reading about when they have the whole thing of this god as set up being killed, that his demise, he's just kind of a passive, it's just a side note on the story, and he's just this pitiful remnant. But yeah, that falls in line exactly with the descriptions of what will happen with Satan. If you look in the Bible, it talks about how the great kings of the earth, and everybody will look at Satan when everything's over, and they'll go like, he's the one that caused all that trouble. That thing that. And so I just thought it was interesting, the parallels that are there. But finally, his addressing of science, and I guess he's got a book on this touching on his claimed attachment to, or the stuff that he derived from what he claims is science. And a lot of it is science, but there's some interesting things here too. He says this is describing the book that they're trying to sell on this, The Science of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. It says, the award-winning science writer reveals how the trilogy is rooted in astonishing scientific truth. Drawing on string theory and space-time, quantum physics, and chaos theory, they answer fascinating questions such as, could parallel worlds like Will and Lyris really exist? The one problem is that not all of those things that it mentioned have demonstrated themselves to be science. For example, string theory. String theory has been prominent in scientific circles for some 30 years. Yet the theory itself has not produced a single falsifiable prediction. That means it hasn't proven itself to be testable. Kind of like the question about God's existence. It's not something you can prove or disprove quite yet, and it looks like it could forever remain that way, which would be a little ironic. But here it is set up as though it was science, as though the string theory was science, when it's not. In fact, there's significant voices in physics that are kind of decrying this obsession over string theory effect, and there's quite a few people are working on it when it's not technically science. So we have this combination of Pullman's allegiances to these assertions, and I actually think the irony is that Philip Pullman, or that's the name, Philip Pullman ends up doing a lot of the same things, making the same mistakes that are attributed to Satan in LDS theology, that he thinks he's advancing his purposes, and he's kind of unwittingly facilitating furthering of God's purposes. So I think that's a lot of what his book is, and well, not book, but I've only seen the movie. But the movie has a lot of truth in it. There's a great deal of truth. Now, I'm not saying there's not subversive elements. There are a few elements I saw in it that we're clearly trying to pass on some false notions about reality. But overall, the general theme of it's pretty amazingly, it looks like it was stolen right out of the Book of Mormon and Mormon theology. But anyway, I don't know what that will make you all think about either Mormon theology or his dark materials, but I found it interesting, and hope that helps.